There's this document every law school has to file once a year. It's public and it's been sitting on the ABA's website the whole time. And if you actually read California Western School of Law's most recent one, here's what you would find. 199 students started last year with a scholarship and 126 of them lost it. And the year before that was even worse. Now, every year I talk with students who signed up for these scholarships without reading the fine print, the one document that would have told them what they were actually signing up for. And so that's what I want to walk you through today. If you've got a scholarship offer on the table right now, let's talk about it for a few minutes before you send in your deposit. So the document. Every American Bar Association accredited law school has got to file one of these once a year. It's called a Standard 509 Information Report. It goes up on the ABA's website every December. I'll put the link below. California Western's most recent one got filed December 15th, 2025, about 4 months ago. And on page 2, there's this one table that matters. In the years 2024 to 2025, 199 students entered with a conditional scholarship. 126 of them lost it. That's 63%. In the 2023 to 2024 cycle, 191 students entered, 130 lost the scholarship, 68%. 2022 to 2023, 194 entered, 124 lost it, so that's 64%. And so 3 years in a row, a total of 584 students entered with scholarships, and 380 of them walked out with less money than they thought they were getting. That's 65%, 2 out of every 3. Now, here's the number you want to consider next to that. The national average is about 27% of students losing conditional scholarships. And so California Western is running more than double the national rate, and they've been doing this for 3 years running or more. So why is this happening? Honestly, 2 reasons, and both of them are in the same filing. The first one is who they admit. California Western's 25th percentile LSAT is a 152, median's a 155, 75th is a 158. It's a 6-point spread, means the class is not uniform. You've got students sitting in the same contracts lecture with real gaps in their preparation going in. The second reason is that law school grades are curved. Now, of course, that's true everywhere, but here's why it matters. Your grade doesn't depend on what you know, it depends on how you rank against the person sitting next to you. And California Western's own scholarship page tells you what you need to keep the money. You've got to have a cumulative GPA of 2.85 or higher. And honestly, for the classes in this filing, the threshold was higher than that. And so if you put it all together, we've got a student with a 152 LSAT accepting a $30,000 scholarship, walking in, sitting next to a 158 LSAT student, and they're both trying to land above the same GPA line. One of them's not going to. One of them is due to failure. And so the scholarship isn't really $30,000, it's more of a coin flip. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, okay, fine, but it's still a shot. Worst case, I pay full price, I still get the degree, I still become a lawyer. But let's talk about what full price actually means here. Full-time tuition for the 2025-2026 admission year is $64,000, $720 in total. So living expenses off campus run $34,000. So you're looking at about $99,000 a year all in. 3 years is just under $300,000. Now, the first time bar passage rate for their 2024 graduates was 62.9%. California state average is 77.5%. So they're running almost 15% points below the state average. So let's say you accept the $30,000 scholarship, you enroll, you pay the first year at reduced cost, and then the scholarship gets pulled. Now you've got 2 options. You leave and you're burned a year, or you stay and you pay full tuition for 2 more years. That's an extra $60,000 on top of what you originally thought you owed. And when you graduate, there's still about a 1 in 3 chance you don't pass the bar on your first try. So if you're holding a scholarship offer from any law school right now, I want you to ask in writing whether the scholarship is conditional. And if they're vague about it, that's your answer right there. The next thing you want to do is pull the school's 509 report for yourself and find the conditional scholarships table. Do the division, number of scholarships reduced, divided by the number entering. Anything over 27%, which is that average, you want to pause. Anything over 40%, you want to negotiate hard. Anything over 60%, you really want to know what you're getting into there. Third thing you want to do is find out what GPA you actually need to keep the money. then find out what percentile that GPA represents in the class. Because if keeping your scholarship means finishing in the top half, and by definition, half the class has to finish in the bottom half, well, you can do that math yourself, right? The fourth thing you want to do is ask the school to convert the conditional scholarship into a guaranteed one. And sometimes they'll do it, especially if you've got a competing offer from a peer school. Worst thing they can say is no. But if they won't budge, price this scholarship correctly. A $30,000 scholarship with a 65% loss rate isn't really a $30,000 scholarship. In expected value, on average, is closer to $10,000. And so that's what you're actually being offered in effect. So you've got to decide whether $10,000 is enough of a reason to pick this school. And the funny thing, what really bothers me here is that the 509 report's not secret. It's not leaked. It's not hidden. It's right there on the school's own website. It's on the American Bar Association portal. Gets updated every December. California Western isn't hiding any of this. They can't by law. It's filed on time and they posted it publicly. The reason these numbers sound shocking is because almost nobody reads them. So the schools check the disclosure box and they count on you not looking and the cycle keeps going. And so your job is to look. And if you want my guidance, if you want my help navigating this process, looking at these 509s, navigating your way to a higher LSAT score, I'm happy to help you out. I'm offering free LSAT tutoring for everybody watching this now or later. The link to book that free tutoring lesson with me is unpluggedprep.com/start. Link is below the video on YouTube, pinned in the chat on YouTube, in my bio on TikTok and Instagram as well. That is an open offer for everybody watching this now or later. And if you find these lives helpful, I do these every single weekday, same time, same place, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 Central, 11 Pacific, here on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, wherever you're watching this. That is an open offer, by the way, every single weekday. If you haven't been to the YouTube channel yet, just go to the link in my bio on TikTok or IG and you'll be able to find it there. And feel free to drop your questions in the chat, by the way. I see A is asking, what about a 3.1 GPA and a 175 LSAT? Could still be a pretty strong application. I mean, a 3.1 GPA is, of course, below the medians. And you'll be a so-called splitter applicant, low GPA, high LSAT, totally fine. By the way, law schools love splitters. They actually weigh your LSAT score more heavily than your undergraduate GPA anyway. And so that 175 LSAT could do a lot to offset a relatively lower GPA. Mike is asking thoughts on Emory Law, their downfall in the rankings. Okay, so when a school drops in the rankings, that could actually be good news for you as an applicant because the school gets more desperate. And what's bad for them is good for you. And so you might be able to negotiate scholarships a bit harder than you otherwise would have been able to do, because the school seeing a drop in their rankings is going to worry that they will drop further and further over time, that they're going to have less people applying. And so you could be in a rather advantageous negotiation position there. John's asking, do you think the June remote exam will be problematic? I think that honestly, for the past 6 years now, the remote LSAT's always been problematic. There are always tech issues. The April LSAT was unique in the tech issues that folks experienced. I think that was more of a one-off. I mean, the February and January LSATs went a lot better, and January had way more people taking it than April did. So it's not really to be expected that it would happen to that same extent. But of course, if you want to mitigate the likelihood of experiencing tech issues or proctor issues, the best thing you can do is just take the LSAT in person to avoid all of that. Monveer's asking, should I work before law school? You can. I'm not that concerned about whether you work or not before law school. That's really your call based on whether you have a gap year between undergrad and law school, whether you have some time in between, and whether your financial situation requires that you work. You don't need to work before going to law school. Law schools don't really care a whole lot whether you do or don't. You could argue there's advantages to having work experience on your application, on your resume, to show that you've had some real-world exposure to the law or just real-world exposure to the workforce in general. But if that would delay your applying a year, I don't think it's worth it. Now, aside from California Western, there's another law school I was looking into, Vermont. Vermont has one law school. In 2022, it changed its name. And last year, about a third of its graduates failed the bar the first time they took it. And when they went to New York to sit for that bar, about half of them failed. Now, every law school has to publish a report called a 509. It's public, it's free, and almost nobody reads it. And so if you have an admit from this school on your desk right now, you got to see what I found out. Now, quick context, because most applicants have never heard of this document. The 509 is the single most important piece of paper in the law school application process. Every ABA accredited law school has to file one every year, and the American Bar Association posts them publicly. It includes admissions numbers, tuition, scholarships, bar passage rates, all of it's there. And the rankings summarize this data, but the 509 is the raw file itself. Now, if you're spending $250,000 on law school, you should probably read the 509 before you send in a seat deposit. It takes about 20 minutes, and most applicants never do it. And again, every school's filing is at the ABA Required Disclosures website. I'll link it below in the video later. Now, let's look at Vermont. South Royalton, Vermont is a town of about 600 people with one law school, been there since 1972. Used to be called Vermont Law School, rebranded as Vermont Law and Graduate School. They renamed in summer of 2022. And around the same time, the school announced an anonymous $8 million donation and launched 3 new master's programs. Now, a few years before the rename, the school stripped tenure from most of its tenured faculty, and the National Faculty Association publicly sanctioned them for it. Around the same time as the rename, the ABA found the school out of compliance with an accreditation rule called Standard 316. That rule says at least 3/4 of your graduates have to pass the bar within 2 years. If you miss it for too long, you'll lose your accreditation. Now, Vermont Law got back into compliance in early 2023, and the name officially changed a couple months later. Now, the 509 filed December 2025, the class that started this past fall. The class size was 290 first-year students, split almost evenly between the full-time program on campus and a part-time online program. So that second number, the online program, is new, didn't exist 4 years ago, and today it's the bigger half of the incoming class. Now, when a school launches an online JD and it overtakes the on-campus program in 3 years, that's clearly a revenue strategy. They're looking to maximize their revenue, get more money coming in. Now, if you look at the LSAT section, the bottom quarter of the class came in with a 148. The top quarter came in with a 157. That is a 9-point spread between the lowest LSAT and the highest LSAT. That's one of the widest in the country. For context, a 148 puts you in the bottom 30% of all LSAT takers. The school admitted roughly 70 students at or below that mark and sat them in the same classrooms as students scoring well above the national average. And that gap matters because law school grades are curved. Every class has to have a bottom. And when the bottom starts at a 148, the bar exam prediction for that group is pretty bad before they even take their first final. Now let's look at the cost. Tuition plus fees, a little over $56,000 a year. Living expenses, this is from the school's own filing, about $24,000. And so the total cost to go to Vermont Law for 3 years is roughly $250,000. Now, when you're looking at bar passage rates, there are 2 numbers that matter when you're evaluating a law school's 509 report. The first time bar passage rate, which is the percentage of graduates who pass the bar on their first try, that's the most important number. The ultimate bar passage rate is the percentage who eventually pass within 2 years. That's the number the school has to maintain to keep their accreditation. Now, schools, of course, they prefer to quote the ultimate bar passage number because it's higher. Those who pass in 2 years is going to be a higher number than those who pass in only 1 year. Now, the 509 report forces them to report both. Now, Vermont Law's first-time bar passage rate for last year's graduating class was about 65%. Now, the ABA weighted average for the same states their graduates sat in was about 76%. So that gap there at roughly 11 points. In plain English, this means a typical law school graduate has about a 3 in 4 shot of passing the bar on the first try. A Vermont Law graduate only has a 2 in 3 shot. And this is a pattern over time over the past few years, and it's been getting worse. 3 years ago, it was about 54%. 2 years ago, 63%. Last year, about 65%. Now, here's the specific number I want to call your attention to. Bar passage is reported by state, and the 509 breaks out every state where a school's graduates actually took the bar. For the class that graduated 2 years ago, 17 Vermont law grads took the New York State Bar, and only 9 of them passed, 9 out of 17. New York's state average that year for graduates of ABA law schools was about 83%, but Vermont law's rate in New York was only 53%. And so a Vermont law grad who takes the New York bar fails at about 3 times the rate of the average law school graduate sitting in the same room. And this is important because after Vermont itself, New York is the second most common place their graduates go to work. And of course, the New York bar exam is a pretty hard bar exam. Everyone's pass rate's going to be lower there. But every other ABA graduate in that room passed at a rate of 83% on average. So why does this happen? Because you're taking somebody with a 148 LSAT score to a market where everybody else went to schools like Fordham, Cardozo, or NYU. Now, the sticker price for 3 years was about $250,000, but almost every student does get some kind of grant that's real. But the typical grant is covering less than half the cost of tuition. So the typical student still walks out owing around $180,000. And at today's federal grad school loan rates, that's about $27,000 a year in loan payments for 10 years, for a 2 and 3 shot and passing the bar, and a 1 and 2 shot if you're in New York. Now, one more number I want to call your attention to from the filing is the accreditation. 3/4 of the graduates have to pass the bar within 2 years. Now, Vermont cleared that rule for one recent class by less than 1/4 of a percentage point. If they had one more student failing the bar in that group, the school would have been in trouble with the ABA. So a scholarship offer from a school like this that's barely threading the needle, it's a pretty bad bet. And so here's what I want you to do if you've been offered admission to Vermont law right now. First thing I want you to do, pull the 509 report yourself. Don't take my word for it. It's on the American Bar Association website. Look at the bar passage report specifically as well, and then email admissions and ask them, what percentage of your first-time takers passed the bar in this specific state I want to practice in? The specific state, not in aggregate. We want to know what's relevant to you. Then look at the employment summary for the most recent graduating class. Look at which firms they worked at, which cities they worked in, and decide if that's the kind of career you want to pursue as well. Then go on LinkedIn, go on Reddit, find 2 alumni from that school who graduated in the last 3 years, and ask them, would they do it all over again? Would they make the same choices again? Just have a 10-minute conversation with them if you can. And do this before you make your seat deposit. Now, zooming out for a second, Vermont law could be a good law school for many folks. It's a real law school. It has a legit public interest mission, has a good reputation in environmental law. And so for the right student who wants to practice environmental law in Vermont or a neighboring state, could be worth pursuing. But the numbers are concerning for the average student. If your 25th percentile LSAT is a 148 and your New York bar passage rate is 1 and 2, and your accreditation margin is less than 1/4 of a percentage point, it's not a bargain. And law schools change their names for a reason when the old name isn't selling anymore. It's an operational change. They want to change their branding because their reputation wasn't very good. And the 509 report, you can see this all for yourself. This is not some secret data that I've gotten my hands on. It's available online to anybody for free on the American Bar Association website. The school links to it on their own admissions page. Now, their whole system, their marketing depends on you not reading that document. Your job is to read it. And if you want better outcomes in admissions, if you want more scholarship money, the best thing you can do to better your situation is to get a higher LSAT score, get a higher GPA. The thing is that for most of you, your GPA is probably fairly determined at this point, not a whole lot of room to raise it up, but your LSAT score, way more you could do to improve your odds by getting a higher LSAT, retaking the LSAT. If you're looking for help, I'm offering free LSAT tutoring for everybody watching this now or later. The link to book that free tutoring lesson with me personally is unpluggedprep.com/start. The link is below this video on YouTube, pinned in the chat on YouTube, in my bio on TikTok and Instagram as well. That is an open offer for everybody watching this now or later. Feel free to drop any questions in the chat on anything at all, LSAT and law school admissions. Happy to help you out however I can, either now or later. Just scanning through the chat, I see there's a pretty hot debate going on in here. I'll see what's going on here. I'm excited to dig in here. John is asking, do law schools care about racial diversity much? Yeah, they do. They certainly care quite a bit. The question is what they're actually able to do about it, given the Supreme Court's ban on race-based affirmative action. There's an open question as to whether law schools are still practicing it or not, and the federal government is investigating on that. And so law schools have, over the past few years, redone a lot of their admissions essays. They've discontinued the so-called diversity statement, replacing it with an adversity statement. So they're not explicitly asking about race to the same degree, but as an applicant, you are still free to talk about your race and talk about your life experience. Law schools are not banning you or looking down on your disclosure of that. And it's ultimately up to them to decide how to use it while staying within the letter of the law. School and Jew says, let me save you the time. People go through degrees like poli-sci and think that prepares them for the LSAT. Yeah, I majored in poli-sci myself. Certainly does not prepare you for the LSAT. I think that a lot of folks who are interested in government, interested in law, tend to major in poli-sci as I did, and then go on to explore law school. But correct that a poli-sci degree has really nothing at all to do with the LSAT itself. The best preparation for the LSAT is LSAT preparation using previously administered LSAT practice tests. You can get them from the LSAC Law Hub platform. LSAC has published literally thousands of practice questions that you can use to study from, and that is the best prep material. Alex is asking, I'm looking to switch from engineering to pre-law, but want to major in finance. Does that look bad? No, it doesn't. Law schools don't really care what you major in. You can major in literally anything and go to law school. And if anything, it could be better to major in something less cliche, less common, because it'll stand out more. And it's also a more practical degree. So let's say you major in finance and decide not to go to law school after all. Your finance degree is still pretty valuable, probably more valuable than a pre-law degree that you're earning, but then not actually going to law school with. School and Jew says, your LSAT score determines your likely success rate into law schools, which will determine future pay. 100%. I mean, the LSAT score is the most important factor. It's the heaviest weighted factor in the law school admissions process. And so that determines which law schools you get into, what kind of scholarship offers you get. And that's one reason why folks invest so much into their LSAT prep, because it gets them better outcomes. And getting into a better law school, getting more scholarship money, can help to determine the trajectory of the rest of your legal career. Well worth putting in the effort. I think that the time and money that you invest in your LSAT score is really the easiest money you'll ever make, because a couple more points on your LSAT could earn you tens of thousands of dollars in scholarship money, maybe six figures, getting you a full ride. So yeah, well worth taking the time. All Kinds of Clips asks, can I start at age 30? Yeah, I mean, you can start law school at any age. Law schools do not look down on older applicants. A lot of older applicants tend to worry about being a so-called non-traditional student, but the truth is that law schools actually like older applicants because they have more life experience, more work experience. You're not going to law school on a whim or for lack of a better option. It's because you legit want to pursue it, and you have probably more well thought out reasons for pursuing it and have more life experience you could bring to classroom discussions and such. So they're not going to look down on that at all. Christina says, I feel like I get worse the more I practice. Is it possible that you're burned out? Do you need a break? I mean, what's your study plan like? I mean, one of the things that we do for our students at LSAT Unplugged is we create for you a personalized study plan laying out exactly what to do from now through your test date. We want to help you maximize the time that you're putting in, considering your other obligations, whether you're in work or you're in school or you have family obligations. We can help you carve out time around all of that to study for the LSAT, but we also don't want you to burn yourself out. Because the LSAT is not a test of memorization. It's a test of pattern recognition, a test of skills that you build over time. But you don't cram for this, and so you don't want to burn the candle at both ends. You don't want to be sleep deprived. Could be worth taking a couple days off. Could be worth taking a week off, maybe. Depends when your LSAT is. I mean, if you're taking the LSAT in June, a month and a half from now, I wouldn't take off an entire week, but you could probably afford a couple days. And if you're taking it in August or beyond, you could take a week off if you need to. Ms. Dom is asking, I'm going to reschedule for August. What's the minimum amount of time to prep for the LSAT? I mean, August gives you 4 months. That's plenty of time. I recommend a minimum of 2 to 3 months for your LSAT prep. Ideally, 5 to 6 months to reach your fullest potential. You can do it in less time, but I wouldn't if you can avoid it. The more time, the better up to a point. So you started in February, blanked out in March. Okay, so you started 2 months ago, but took a month off, and now you're getting back into it, I'm guessing. All right, so I mean, you've still got plenty of time. I think August is a reasonable time frame for you to hit your goal. And for those who aren't aware, the June LSAT is the last LSAT that's going to be remote. Starting in August, it's back to in person for everybody. You could take it either remote or in person in June, but there are sometimes tech issues when you're taking it remotely. A lot of folks in April had tech issues, abnormally so, but you don't want to be the person who could potentially experience a repeat of that. And so you can avoid that by just going for August or just choosing in person for June if you want. And by the way, folks, for those of you just joining, I'm offering a free tutoring lesson for everybody watching this now or later. The link to book that free tutoring with me is unpluggedprep.com/start. The link is below the video on YouTube, pinned in the chat on YouTube, in my bio on TikTok and Instagram as well. That's an open offer, by the way. Wet Floor's asking, got a 2.6 GPA in undergrad, 7 years of work experience. What can a 170 plus LSAT do? Looking for a career change. Well, your GPA is low, as you already know, of course, but there's been some time since you earned the GPA. And so who you were back then is not who you are now. You've grown, you've changed. The more time that has passed since you earned your undergraduate GPA, the less weight they place on the GPA and the more importance they give to the LSAT. And so a 170 plus LSAT can do a lot to offset a lower GPA, and law schools weigh your LSAT score more heavily than your undergraduate GPA anyway. And so this is really the biggest opportunity that you have to move the needle and increase your odds of getting in and increase the scholarship money you can get as well. Definitely worth putting in the time. L's asking, thoughts on schools that offer law school online now? I think it's awesome. I wish that more law schools offered it online. I wish the ABA allowed more schools to offer it online. I think that it has a big convenience factor, not having to commute, not having to relocate, makes it accessible to a lot more folks than who otherwise might not have been able to do law school at all. So I'm glad to see it. I hope it continues. The one thing I'll say is that I think it should be cheaper, considering that you're not taking advantage of any of the on-campus services or resources, and the cost of offering it online is so much lower. I think they should pass the savings on to you, but the universities certainly want their money as well. So I think all the more reason to fight harder for scholarships. I'm just scanning through for more questions here. Some bars are harder than others, California being the hardest. Yeah, I mean, that's true. Some state bars are harder than others, California and New York being among the most difficult. And so if you want to practice law in California or New York, you might want to go to law school in one of those states where they're going to give you more specialized prep for those state bars. And those states both have an abundant number of law schools, to say the least, like a dozen or more. So you've got plenty of choices all across the rankings. You've got schools in the T14, you've got schools in the mid tier, you've got schools on the lower end. And of course, you can choose a more prestigious school with less scholarship money or a lower ranked school with more scholarship money. And so you can choose which options are best for you. But yeah, plenty of options. And I would say keep that in mind when you're deciding where you want to go to law school. SHGH asks, what makes 1L hard, specifically spring semester of 1L? Any law students want to comment on that? I think it's just the sheer amount of reading they assign. I think that's a big part of it. Like it's an overwhelming workload that you're under, such that there's a reason why they don't allow you to work during law school, because they don't want you to divide your energies between work and school. They don't want you really having any other obligations. And keep in mind that you are competing with folks who aren't working. And so if you are working, you're at a disadvantage. So don't make the battle any harder than it is. And learn from those who've come before you. Talk to 2Ls, talk to 3Ls. See if they can give you advice on the professors, on the exams, the notes. Get good at outlining. And for those of you starting law school this fall, maybe you want to do some pre-law school prep. There's a lot of resources out there around IRAC and outlining that you could take advantage of prior to going to law school. And by the way, folks, for those of you just joining, I do these lives every single weekday, same time, same place, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 Central, 11 Pacific, here on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, if you're just joining. If you find these helpful, please spread the word. The only way this grows is through word of mouth. I don't do any advertising for these lives, and the algorithm doesn't really boost them because they can't run ads during them. So I do appreciate your support, spreading the word, sharing this to your socials on TikTok or Discord, subreddits, Facebook groups. The more this grows, the more I'll expand it over time. That's actually part of what inspired me to do the free reading comp explanations I'm creating. For those who aren't aware, I'm creating free explanations for every single released LSAT reading comprehension passage. You can access them on the LSAT Unplugged YouTube channel, linked in my bio. I'm happy to take requests for future resources as well. Al says, scored a 130 on my diagnostic. What should I do? Study hard, study a lot, get some support. What are your goals? What kind of LSAT score are you shooting for? Regardless, if you want to improve 20, 30, 40 points or more, you've got to change the variables to change the equation. That might involve putting in more time per day and per week, might involve getting some tutoring or coaching or taking a course of some kind. You want to get some personal feedback on what you're getting wrong and why you're getting it wrong. Because the thing is that when you're studying on your own, you don't know what you don't know. But once we add some support into the mix, there's usually a pretty quick score boost, meaning there's going to be a lot of low-hanging fruit. And so if you want to talk through an action plan, a study plan to get you from your current score of 130 up to your goal score on your time frame whenever you're taking the LSAT, whether it's June or August or September or beyond, you can feel free to book a free tutoring lesson with me. The link to book that free tutoring is unpluggedprep.com/start. The link is below the video on YouTube, pinned in the chat on YouTube, in my bio on TikTok and Instagram as well. That's an open offer for everybody watching this now or later. I see Emre says, I want to go to UT Austin Law School. Okay, well, what are their LSAT medians? What's their GPA median? And what are your numbers like? If your GPA is below their GPA median, you want to be above on the LSAT median to compensate. In other words, you want to balance out a lower GPA with a higher LSAT score. Definitely possible, just a function of putting in the work, studying the right way. And you've got 5 months till applications open, 4.5 really, but good enough. Take the LSAT in August or September, study hard this summer. You can rock it in the fall, apply as soon as applications open. And when you apply early in the cycle, it's easier to get in, and there's more scholarship money as well available to you. And if you want to talk through that, what that could look like to get an action plan for your LSAT prep, you can book the free tutoring with me. I'll be happy to help you out. I'll be back on Monday, folks. Same time, same place, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 Central, 11 Pacific, here on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. I'll see you all then. In the meantime, all the best.